And then all of a sudden the early church was built off of this cult that claimed to be overnight believing that a God became human, died, rose from the dead. Then all of a sudden all these Jews who never would have believed in a God who would have actually died on a cross and rose from the dead, they would have been the last ones to believe that. All of a sudden overnight, 2/3 of the Roman Empire became Christian. What's the hoax? What's the hoax? What happened? No. See, if you're going to deny this, you need to tell me, or maybe tonight, come up with it yourself.
Question: do you think there's like a possibility that what's written in the Bible is not true? Like
anything's possible. He's a dream. Possible.
So,
anything's possible.
Then outside of the Bible, what is the evidence for us to believe that it's true? Like everything in it is true. Not anything in the Bible. Outside the Bible, what is there for us to believe that it is true?
First point, I don't assume that every page of any book is all true. Rather, I put together some tests to determine historical credibility, accuracy of manuscript transmission, accuracy of translation.
So, like, the idea that, like, God created everything, that on the first 7 days and such. How do you verify something? Because
it's impossible to verify that.
Because the Bible told you, correct?
No.
Then why do you believe it?
In Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, the word day, which in Hebrew is yom, refers to a 12-hour period.
I'm not talking about the nuances, but the idea that God created everything, that God created this world, that God exists at all.
Yeah.
You get that from the Bible.
No, sir, I do not. I do not believe that God exists because a book tells me so.
Yeah.
I believe God exists because I observe order and design. And I know that order and design does not come about by chance, because I would have flunked out of Yale.
Okay, then
all right?
How do you...
I was not smart enough to go through here, okay? Why? Because I was not able to bring order and design out of the chaos of what was up here.
But how do you know that?
You think there's a God or not?
I think there's some sort of higher power.
Okay. The evidence is that the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are historically reliable.
Aren't those in the Bible?
Yeah?
Okay, I'm talking like outside of the Bible.
Okay, what do you want to know?
Especially on the higher aspects of the Bible, the idea of a higher power and attributing that to the God of the Bible. How do you know that's true? Why do you believe
I was answering your question directly.
Okay.
All right, so you got to slow down.
Okay.
Okay? The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John give us an accurate historical picture of Jesus.
Yeah.
Based on that historical evidence of the trustworthiness of Jesus Christ, I take a step of faith and begin a relationship with Christ. When I experience His trustworthiness in my life personally, I view His statements about the credibility of the Old Testament and His own words as being reliable.
So
if you die and rise from the dead, I'll listen very carefully to everything you have to say. Does that make sense? That's why I trust Jesus. Does that make sense?
So you trust in the Old Testament because Jesus told you?
No, He didn't tell me to.
No, because
Jesus never talked to me personally, okay?
But Jesus vouched for the
Jesus, exactly. Jesus treated the Old Testament as the Word of God.
And you believe in however many years between now and back then that there was no room for error or inaccuracies in the Bible and other historical texts at all.
Well, of course there have been errors.
So there's mistakes in the Bible. There's inaccuracies in the Bible.
Yeah.
So then how do you know what's true and what's not? How could you...
Because the overwhelming evidence, if you study the issue, is those variations in the original manuscripts in Greek are so small, they don't change anything. It's a question of personal article, impersonal article, singular, plural, repetition of a phrase. Jesus was the son of Mary, who was a virgin in Matthew chapter 1. The discrepancies, the variations in the Greek New Testament are so small, they don't change nothing.
I'm not even talking about fully discrepancies, but the idea that the Bible was written by humans, right? The Bible was written by humans.
I sure hope it was.
Then how do you know those humans were telling the truth? Our entire faith system is based on the trust of humans from thousands of years ago. And if they're lying, they're crazy, as you guys are saying, then everything we know crumbles. And the possibility of that exists no matter what.
Yes, that's right. What are your tests that you use to determine historical reliability of any book?
It's as we were talking about before, like the verification of other sources.
Okay, so there are plenty of other documents about Jesus.
Yeah.
Josephus,
Yeah, I'm not talking
Antiquities.
about the existence of Jesus.
Well, then what are you talking about?
I was talking about God as a higher power.
No, sir. Now you're not being fair with me. Now you're being dishonest. I told you flat out, there's no way that a thinking person can believe in God because a book tells you so.
Okay, that's why, and I'm sorry.
Well, then you went right back to that. Come on, sir. Are we going to talk right or not?
Yeah.
No, we're not. If you're going to come
I
on.
feel like we're talking.
You're running circles, and that's not fair. We agreed earlier.
Yeah.
I do not believe God exists because a book, the Bible, tells me so.
You believe it because the book told you to believe that Jesus.
No. And I'm going to have to go on to somebody else real soon if we don't start communicating better.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe God exists because the evidence of order and design in creation points to an intelligent mind.
Yeah.
I believe God exists because I experience moral absolutes, which points to a moral lawgiver.
Yeah.
I believe God exists because the evidence is life comes from life, not from non-life.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's more plausible and reasonable for me to believe, in the beginning, a living being created life, not in the beginning, non-life created life. That's why I believe God exists. Has nothing to do with any book. It has to do with an observation of life.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I believe God exists. Now, why do I believe the Gospels are historically accurate? Because I have tests that I use to determine whether any document that claims to be historical is reliable. My tests are 4. Internal consistency, literary style, archaeological evidence, and manuscript evidence. And the Gospels pass that with flying colors, as does the Quran. If you're going to tell me Muhammad never lived, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. Muhammad was a real historical person.
Yeah.
All right, now are we clear or are we unclear?
Okay. One last question. I'm trying to understand your logic genuinely. So you believe, like, because of historical verification in other sources and internal accuracy and such, that the Gospels are true.
Are historically accurate. That's all. Let's say it all together. Historically accurate. Hey! Some people can listen around here. It's good to see here.
Okay, then, so from the teachings of the Gospels, and the teachings of the Gospels spreading the word of Jesus,
Yeah?
that word of Jesus that gives you a faith in the teachings of the Old Testament. Yes or no?
No. My experience of the trustworthiness of Christ in my life.
In your life.
In my life.
So it's not the Bible, it's your life. Because, no, now we're changing the story.
I got him. Let me in. Let me in, coach.
All right. Your turn. Oh, man.
Here we go, baby. You might get me, but I'm going to try. All right, so within the first 100 years after Jesus' life,
Yeah.
25 extra biblical sources we have from Josephus, the Talmud, many others, talking about the whole narrative of the Christian faith. So throw out the Bible, throw out the documents, throw out Christianity. It was all eyewitness testimony from those outside of the Bible, and then these eyewitnesses to the resurrection
Eyewitness
itself.
testimonies could be false.
They can be false. All of history can be false. I'm totally with you. Alexander the Great, everybody could just be false. So why even come and have a history department here?
Yeah.
It all could be false.
That's not the argument I'm making. I'm just saying that, like,
You just said that, though.
okay,
That is the argument you're making. See, you keep, what I hear you keep doing is you keep saying, this is the argument I'm making, but no, as soon as we give you an answer, no, that's not the argument I'm making. That's exactly what I'm hearing every single time. It's being redundant. So what's the argument? Because he just said, the reason why we listen and we think about the Old Testament and work through what is true, metaphorical, literal, what is not, is by looking at Jesus Christ.
my assertion right now
Yeah.
is not even an active assertion of, yes, the Bible is false, it's all false, because I want to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the idea that me and myself personally, like, I can't reconcile the idea, like, the possibility that, like, all these testimonies, all these eyewitness testimonies, everyone believing in Jesus, that could have been a giant cult back then.
It could have been.
And that everyone was just crazy and believing in that cult.
Could have been.
And
then all of a sudden the early church was built off of this cult that claimed to be overnight believing that a God became human, died, rose from the dead. Then all of a sudden all these Jews who never would have believed in a God who would have actually died on a cross and rose from the dead, they would have been the last ones to believe that. All of a sudden overnight, 2/3 of the Roman Empire became Christian. What's the hoax? What's the hoax? What happened? No. See, if you're going to deny this, you need to tell me, or maybe tonight, come up with it yourself. You need to tell me then what occurred. What occurred? It wasn't the resurrection. So what occurred?
Again,
If you don't have a theory and you're coming to a crime scene, bro, if you're coming to a crime scene and I have a theory based off of the evidence I have and you have no evidence to the contrary whatsoever, you're just saying, it didn't happen, that's weak, man. You should be fired on the spot.
I'm not making an active assertion, and I'm not, like, there's no burden of proof because I'm not asserting that anything's false or anything. What I'm simply asking is why you believe and how you believe. Because, like, again, back to the whole cult thing, we've seen, like, the idea of a cult.
The Branch Davidians. Absolutely.
Like, seen people,
Jim Jones. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And again, I'm not asserting, yes, this has to be false.
Right.
I'm more asking as someone who wants to believe how I can truly believe with all faith and no doubt.
Absolutely. And so you have to go to Jesus Christ yourself by reading the Gospels, figure out, did he exist? So 98.9% of scholars believe that he existed, right? So we're there with that. Secondly, was his character pure, perfect? If he claimed to be God, we expect some pretty good character, right? What about his sayings? He said these things that were of authority, which meant they transcended even the law at the time that the rabbis were talking about. So his teachings must have been pretty stinking good. Now, what about the resurrection? Well, all scholars, even the most atheistic, will say that there was an empty tomb. That tomb was Joseph of Arimathea's, that the disciples claimed to have had some experience with Jesus, who at first they thought it definitely was not Jesus, but then all of a sudden they claimed to have had experiences that it was, that there was tremendous life change with the top rabbi in the known world at the time, which was Saul. The life change turned to Paul because he had an encounter with the resurrected Christ. And then the church began. And then all of a sudden, 34% of the world became Christian. Now, it could have been, Jesus Christ could have been, like you're saying beautifully, Jim Jones, or he could have been David Koresh, who had these two huge cults. So he claimed to be God. As a mental health therapist, I see a lot of people who claim to be God who are schizophrenics. Many. So Jesus Christ could have been a schizophrenic who pulled off this incredible hoax, and now 34% of the world think he's the Son of God. Could be the case. Could be crazy. Could be the case.
Yeah. So, okay.
What is more likely? That he actually was a son of God, or that he pulled off this incredible hoax that has changed the world and changed the entire known Roman Empire? And by the way, if you're here at the school searching for a higher level education, you do realize it was all Christian missionaries who started this school, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, right? So the search for truth was fully Christian.
Yeah.
So, do you sacrifice for others, do you think, at times? Yeah. Are you kind to others? Are you compassionate to others?
I hope so.
Okay, you are a Christian even if you say you're not a Christian, according to Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah.
So be a little more consistent and don't be a Christian in your lifestyle if you're going to be an atheist. Don't live that way, right?
Yeah.
What do you think on that?
Okay. Like, one big thing, I guess, what it's boiling down, at least in my mind, is the idea that, like, your faith and your belief in Jesus comes from, like, through these facts, through these texts, an understanding and a trust that these human documents were indeed correct, and that from these things that happened, you believe that it's implied that there was a Jesus, so there was a God, so there's all this. And I guess we kind of agree to disagree, because I don't know if we'd ever come to that reconciliation.
Right.
Is that, like, I think there's too much room for too much room for error, too much room for change, too much room for things to be false.
Good.
That I can't stake my entire life and my entire belief and my entire system on.
Yeah.
So, like.
So can I reinforce your point even more?
Yeah.
400,000 variants in the Bible.
Yeah.
Why do I shouldn't believe the Bible? It's 400,000 variants. Okay, well, 6,000 manuscripts though.
Yeah.
So there's endless more words and theological doctrine, obviously, than any type of variants. And these variants are missing commas, for example, that a scribe missed. So do I have a problem with that? No, I don't. Because I'm not of a certain religion or ilk that says this Bible is directly from the Word of God with zero error. No, God used humans, obviously, to communicate his message. But I think what ultimately gets to that question, I hope this is a sufficient answer, maybe it's not, is within the first 100 years after Jesus' resurrection, the eyewitnesses, many who we're still alive according to the earliest creed, 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8. Paul talked about this. These creeds were passed all around the known world. So everybody had the central message of what occurred with Jesus' resurrection. And that's how the early church happened, so it wasn't a hoax, and it spread so quickly. Now you have to get into, okay, but is everybody just lying? Was it the wrong tomb? Well, hold on, there was enemy attestation coming from the Romans that actually this did occur, but they say that the disciples actually stole the body. And so never do we have any extra biblical, outside of the Bible, documents saying that the resurrection did not occur. Everybody took it at face value, they just didn't want to talk about it. So within the first 100 years, just remember this, it was oral eyewitness testimony that spread around the entire Roman Empire that central thing happened, the resurrection. So it wasn't misinterpreted. It didn't come till later, hundreds of years later, where all of a sudden heresies broke out. It said, oh, but was he fully human? Oh, but was he fully God? I don't get it, huh? What about the Trinity? But early on, we still have all the evidence in the world that was the message based off of the evidence.
Okay, one last question.
Yes.
So, oh wait, I forgot my question. Oh yeah. So, considering agreeing on this hypothetical truth of the resurrection, I understand that, but I don't understand how, you agree that God's messengers are humans, right? And humans can make mistakes. So I don't understand how that trust in maybe that historical event leads to your trust in everything else in the Bible that's being said, and no acknowledgement of the fact that maybe this teaching was wrong, maybe this scripture was wrong, maybe this was mistranslated, maybe this was misaccurate. And for someone to base their journey to heaven on an unreliable document that could have mistakes, and to believe that a perfect being had this document to give us their message, and it has mistakes, it has inaccuracies, but it's supposed to eternally teach us, I can't reconcile.
Throw it out.
The Bible?
Throw it out.
Throw it out.
Throw it out.
Okay, what do we do?
still have everything that happened. Throw it out.
But now how do I know how
everything that happened outside of the Bible? We have all the documents that I just mentioned, all the sources, this is what occurred from enemy attestation. People who didn't want the Bible to be true, the events in it to be true, were claiming that this occurred.
I'm not talking about the events. I'll tell you about how do I know how to live my life now if we're throwing out the Bible. So
well, sure, the ethical teachings that were passed down orally and eventually written down, sure, you want to live off those ethical teachings. Now, you could say because of the character of the people who actually wrote them, because of the character of Christ. Well, yeah, you certainly don't know him. But wait a second, hold on. I just said you are living like a Christian based off of all your values and ethics. That came directly from the Judeo-Christian faith that founded this very university. So if you're doubting all of it, and saying, no, it's wrong, it's not true, then why not live more selfishly? Why not cheat on your exams if you can get away with it? That's from an evolutionary perspective, just get away with it.
There's many Christian values that I don't believe in, I don't live by.
Okay, what are some of those?
Premarital sex.
Premarital sex. So this is why you're not a Christian. You said 5 times out here, guys, I just want to make sure we all heard this. I want to be a Christian, but then all of a sudden we get to the very bottom of it, and it's an emotional bias. It's your faith based off the frustration on premarital sex. And I'm with you, bro. I don't want to be a Christian either because of the emotional bias of I want to sleep with as many women as possible.
That's not what I said.
That's exactly. I promise you that is what is driving you. I promise you that's what's driving you, at least a huge part of it.
Okay. So,
all right, that was your last question, right? Because we're going to have to move on.
I got a really good follow-up question.
Well, it better be really good. If it's not good, we got to out.
Really good. Okay. We could really, I really just want to hear your thoughts.
Get the gotcha moment, yep.
Okay. So, again, throw the Bible out, but we're trusting the ethics and teachings of Christianity because of the character of these figures. But if you just said we could throw the Bible out and that it's about the historical variability and the Bible is flawed, why are we believing in every single thing the Bible is saying and every single teaching it has if you yourself just said that, you fully trust it?
There are endless amounts of things in the Old Testament that are descriptive and not prescriptive in the New Testament because they are not repeated. So we're not, I'm going to play football this afternoon, possibly with my daughter. I'm going to throw the pigskin. Well, it says in the Old Testament, don't touch pigskin.
Yeah.
So am I breaking a law?
No.
But it says it in the Bible, according to you. It says in the Bible, I am breaking a law.
I don't know. It seems like it's not. I don't know. It seems like you're leading me to saying it's not breaking law.
I'm not leading it. It says it.
Okay, so it is breaking law.
According to you.
According to the Bible, yes.
According to you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what did I just say? That's in the Old Covenant. That's descriptive at the time for the Israelite nation.
So
now in the New Covenant, it's not prescriptive because it's not repeated, and Jesus came to fulfill that law.
So we're just interpreting the Bible.
So just remember, yes, you interpret every single thing that you read, I promise. Everybody here interprets. If you don't interpret, you are lying to yourself and to me right now. I promise you interpret.
There's room for subjectivity.
There is room for subjectivity, but I hope you are honest with context, authorship, readership, time period. I really hope you look into these things and not just say, I'm going to go to the Bible. You know, Jesus was the door, so here's a couple pieces of plywood just slapped together. So, you know, he's a door, but that's my subjective opinion. That's my interpretation. He was just a physical piece of plywood. I hope you're not going to honestly go and say, you're just cherry picking and saying that.
So
hey, you're going to read it honestly.
It's our interpretation of the writings in a flawed manuscript from flawed people that is our surefire way to reach heaven. There's a lot of inconsistencies there.
Well, then all of your classical literature is completely flawed, and you shouldn't trust any of it because it was the monks who passed it down.
I mean, we critically analyze all our...
The monks who passed it. That's what we're talking about here. Critically analyze it.
Yeah.
But the central tenets of everything in the Gospels, I promise you, my friend, have been reliably passed down, starting through oral testimony. The eyewitnesses themselves, they started to die off. The monks started to perfectly write it out, other than these variants where the commas, some of the periods are missing. I got to study Hebrew. It was very difficult when I was getting my master's, trust me, and yet incredible the consistency across manuscripts when you look at Hebrew in the Old Testament and then Greek in the New. I had to take that too. I got a D+ on that.
Yeah, but again, I'm not talking about accuracy of manuscripts. We were talking about ethics.
Yes.
And the ethics of the Bible.
Yes.
And
this is why you don't believe. Because you don't like the ethic of no premarital sex. That's why you don't believe. Yeah, I promise, you're a handsome guy. I can tell by your personality. The main reason you don't believe is because you want to sleep around, just like the majority of professors that I know who are honest about it. The sooner you are honest with yourself, I promise, the more unbiased you will come to interpreting the Bible.
Oh, that was my last question.
Great questions today, man.
Thank you.
Love it. Absolutely. Good job.
I was watching one of your earlier videos on YouTube where you said that you don't have to be born Christian or raised Christian to turn towards God. You can see God and find Him in your own life.
Yes, sir.
And form a relationship with Him.
Correct.
And that hell is the absence of a relationship with God.
Yep.
Now, in modern times, there are some governments, namely North Korea, that not only prevent the spread of gospel, but they prevent the spread of all information outside of their country. Yep. And so all those people born and raised in that country are taught to worship their leader, and they're prevented from ever meeting Jesus or having a relationship with Him. So what does God say to those people when they pass away? Does He want to form a relationship with them, and how can they get to heaven?
Stuart, how did Jesus treat people?
He treated them with respect and kindness.
So we have all the evidence in the world. You go right to Romans 1 and 2 about, you could take, philosophically, you could take what Paul's saying there is basically the teleological argument, which is all the beauty, all the art, all the immaterial things, which I was trying to challenge this guy on from a materialistic secular perspective, you cannot get, but all the immaterial things lead us outside ourselves to there's a God. Paul also says moral objectivity. What is in your conscience, right and wrong. So God knows ultimately what that person's going to choose, but He doesn't determine them to choose one or the other because He's outside of space and time. So He knows what their choice will be, but they still have free will to make the decision. But you're right, if they aren't exposed to a Bible, and they're probably not going to get a Bible, well then they're not going to have the same type of exposure that we have, and they're going to be judged differently. That's why we have examples of being judged differently in the Bible, or people coming to know Christ differently.
Those not exposed to Christ are judged differently. They get a little bit maybe more leniency down the line because they haven't had the exposure, they didn't have the chance. And you're also talking about objective morality, in that the sort of the claim of there's a certain set of rules you live by. You respect the people who are around you. You respect your neighbors. You're kind to people. You feed the hungry. This sort of objective claim of morality. What is your perspective on, say, an atheist or an agnostic who may, let's say even fully by coincidence, but end up following the rules governed by objective morality, or the moral things to do as governed by objective morality, but just plainly does not believe Jesus is the Messiah, believe in
You bet.
Jesus
Real
as
quick,
the
so
Son
we
of
gotta
God.
leave.
Yeah.
In a few minutes.
There is nothing out of your own performance or merit that can get you to God. So it does not matter if an atheist buys into Christian ethics and morality, Hindu ethics and morality, or humanist ethics and morality. It really doesn't matter whatsoever, because it's not about your own good works that get you to heaven. It's about understanding who Jesus is, what he did for you, and growing in a trusting relationship with him.
Let's say, hypothetically, there's someone who bumped into the Bible one time, sort of brushed through it and then kind of put it down, or sort of was informed by it in some ways, but then kind of put it down. There's this, do you see it as sort of a binary thing of you have people who are not exposed to Jesus and therefore get judged differently? Or is it a spectrum of people who have maybe been exposed in different to different magnitudes? And does God, as you see it?
I would check out, great question, I would check out Acts chapter 10. The wealthy businesswoman Lydia is attracted eventually and believes in Christ based off of more of an intellectual approach in reading the scriptures.
Okay.
The centurion is based off of actually more of a miracle. God brings about an earthquake. And so he needs this miracle because he's this hardened intellectual blue-collar guy who is, I'm not going to believe any evidence, but the experience of a miracle opens him up. Then the slave girl, it's an emotional connection where there's social justice involved that actually Christians come and they pull her out and away from the slavery that she was in, and she feels that liberty and the freedom of it, and now she actually has a conversion to Christ. So just in that one chapter in all of Scripture, you have 3 different case studies of how people come to know Christ differently.
So is the lesson that given a single exposure, you have a path to God? Is that the takeaway?
Yeah, we all get different types of exposures. Descartes was exactly right about the starry skies above and the conscience within. As a Christian, he said that's how God reveals himself, especially to those who have not heard of Jesus Christ.
What of people born in different circumstances where presumably, and everyone comes to God comes to God in their own way, but presumably you have individuals who may come from a very Catholic Christian family. The wheels are kind of greased a little bit on that one. But let's say you come from, you see someone from the Hasidic community or a devout Islamic community, who again happen to practice this moral objectivism, who feed the hungry, who are good to their neighbor.
All right, you're buying right back into it, though. You're buying right back into it. Who did Jesus Christ attack more than any other group when he lived here?
But so God,
the Pharisees, who were all about every jot and tittle of the law. They were giving a lot away. They were definitely careful with their tongue. So it's not about working to God.
Any single exposure to the scripture, then sort of gets your name moved off the Excel spreadsheet where it's like, okay, we're going to use these rules to judge this guy, and he gets moved on to the naughty list. Maybe not the naughty list. Maybe that's a simplistic way to put it. But moved on to the this person had a chance and they missed it list. Like there's no spectrum to how God looks at people who have interacted with Scripture.
No. Everything in the Gospels and Paul's epistles, shows even at the end, after 40 days between the resurrection and the ascension of Jesus Christ, he gave endless amounts of proofs we read and evidence for those who did not believe.
Yeah.
Even his own disciples, many of them, at the end, were doubting and some turned away from the faith who had all this evidence. So people harden their hearts. And many say, nope, here's the evidence, and I actually believe I want to turn over my heart, but it's typically a heart issue. It's not about, did I get enough evidence all of a sudden, and did I get this book?
So there's no curve
beyond
that people are graded on.
Right.
There's no curve.
God judges us according to our heart.
Speculative theories of morality. I've studied ethics here a bit. We have theories like utilitarianism, social contract theory. Very smart thinkers have contributed to the moral community. How can we say that sort of they're wrong?
Well, just because they're smart doesn't make them right. And so I would say that's true for any area of study. There's been many smart people who've studied math who were wrong, science who were wrong, linguistics who were wrong, theology who were wrong. I mean, Jonathan Edwards, one of the greatest theologians, he's got some of his earliest manuscripts in here, and he went to Yale. He owned slaves. He was a pretty smart dude. And he owned slaves. Pretty wrong as well. And so, no, I agree to the extent of these are really smart guys who came up with different moral theories, and so they need to be taken seriously, but they're not right just because they're smart.
Yeah. Well, the most relevant piece of being right there, I would say, is getting the conclusion correct. So some of these people reach the conclusion that, for example, we ought not kill one another, we ought not steal from one another, we ought not discriminate against one another. And they do this through purely secular means.
Right.
These are moral principles that I imagine you would agree with. So if these moral principles are correct, and we arrive at them through social contract theory, for example, then where's the disconnect?
Well, again, social contract theory, though, if everybody's coming to the point of saying, this is truly right, this is truly wrong, still somebody can be a free rider to say, okay, as long as I'm not hurting the masses that came together and decided this is right or wrong, and I can get away with this, if I'm not really hurting them, I'm going to go ahead and do it.
But I mean,
And so I can go ahead and cheat on a test here at Yale if it's not really going to hurt the class.
but there's a difference between describing what happens and
Yeah.
prescribing. I would say that social contract theory does a good job of prescribing. Obviously, humans aren't perfect, and
Right.
that's something that you accept as well.
Yeah.
But at least the prescription, what principles would we rationally agree to, sort of from a state of nature? It just happens to be true that even though people will defect, we would rationally agree to not killing one another, not discriminating against one another. That's still true.
Why would we rationally agree to that? I mean, for example, there's a Shantung compound. There's this story about Eric Liddell, the Olympian, who was in the Shantung compound, and a Harvard grad was actually captured as well and went to the Shantung compound. And he was a rationalist, a secular humanist who said, based off of reason, we can all reason together to the point of saying, this is fair for you and this is fair for me.
Yeah.
He went there and became a Christian because he realized you can't reason to the point together to be morally good and rational. He got to that point because he saw that there were rooms with extra bunks in them, and the men who were in these rooms wouldn't allow others to come in and share. Because they said, no, you're getting in the way. Even though we have an extra bunk here, you're still in the way. And so this guy got to the point of saying, no, we reasoned to the point of selfishness.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why did he become a Christian? Because he realized, no, there's moral obligation here. Jesus Christ actually showed that sacrifice, that human rights, that fairness is a real moral value and an ought and a should to live by. And that's why you should share with somebody else. Not just, let's all get to this point of trying to reason together to the point of sharing my bunk when that's going to get in the way of I already have limited resources here.
Yeah. Well, we can get a sort of a litmus test of consensus and rationality just here. Like, if we were to agree amongst one another to not kill one another, can everyone raise their hand who would agree to that? If they think that's a fair thing to agree to not kill one another from a state of nature. Do we agree with that? We agree with that?
Uh-oh. I'm a little nervous about this crowd right now.
But it's irrational to not do that. Would you agree or would you not agree to not killing one another in a state of nature? I think it's rational to do so. If we didn't, then that's just that threatens our own self-interest. That threatens our safety, just as a rational precept. And the same thing will go for not stealing, not discriminating against one another.
Right.
And one thing that you brought up earlier was that.
But again, it was just like a couple years ago, basically.
Oh, yeah.
We all we came together like this and said racism's good. Okay,
But
so why is that wrong and we're right now?
So
just because we're a few years later, it's more recent, is that why?
Well, so take, for example, a Rawlsian contract theory.
Okay.
That's one where you sort of put yourself behind a veil of ignorance.
Yeah,
You don't know what position you'll enter into society, and then what is it rational for me to agree to? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Is it rational for me to agree to enter into a society where I don't know what race I'll be born as?
Right.
And where I would tolerate discrimination based on race?
Sorry, I don't think people can hear you. It's gonna be a little louder.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, speak this way.
Okay, I'll speak this way.
Rawlsian, yep. Keep
Yeah,
going.
so Rawlsian,
veil of ignorance.
Veil of ignorance. Is
Yeah.
it rational for me to agree to enter a society where I might be racially discriminated against? The answer is that that's irrational. And prescriptively, that leads us to a conclusion that it's wrong to discriminate based on race. So, like, this is a secular way to arrive at a pretty robust account of morality. So, like, I feel like the reasoning tracks there.
Yeah.
Where do we need God?
I still struggle though with, are you really going to make a change in society just because of the veil of ignorance? Are you really going to fight for human rights tooth and nail to the point of being able to sacrifice your own life for somebody who doesn't look or act like you at all, or who is a totally different race based off of that code of ethics?
But
I don't think you will. I think at the end of the day, you're going to be a selfish animal and say, yes, we reason to the point, perhaps for just right now, of a certain type of goodness. But no, when the rubber really hits the road, you're going to appeal to your selfish desires. And I believe all those theories that you brought up can be good theories. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, you're going to appeal to selfish interest in all those theories versus the Christian ethic, which is tied to moral obligation, which is not Christian. That's just a moral transcendent source. But Jesus Christ brought it home in the sense of you're going to sacrifice even for your enemy.
But Christians have done a lot of bad things.
Yes.
Again, we're conflating the descriptive and the prescriptive.
I don't think we are.
No, I think we are.
How are we?
Okay, I'll explain. So Christianity prescribes these things, and Christians have done evil things. If we accept that it's inevitable...
So what do you call those people? What do you call those people?
Evil.
What do you call evil Christians? It begins with an H.
Hypocrite.
Hypocrites.
And what do you call evil social contract theorists? Hypocrites.
How? Because if my social construct is completely relative and it's based off of just a select group of people that we've decided for a time, certain time, that this is wrong and this is right, who's ultimately to say that that's truly right and wrong for all time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the descriptive versus prescriptive that you were talking about, you were saying that the social contract theorist might be like sort of hypocritical because people will inevitably do evil things and they will appeal to their own self-interest.
Right.
That happens with Christianity as well.
Yes,
Like,
but does it? But my whole point though is you're missing it, and maybe I'm not communicating it well.
Okay.
It's not about the hypocritical living that I'm talking about. Sure. So here's a knife.
Yeah.
It's a butter knife.
Okay.
I could use it to use butter and butter my bread like I did this morning, or I could use it to stick it in you. All right.
Okay.
So there would be a level of misuse based off of what is that knife's real intent. It's not to stick it in you. It's to butter the bread.
Okay.
So Christianity, when it comes to what is Christ teaching, sacrifice for others, love your neighbor, treat the poor righteously according to what he defined as righteous, love your enemy, sacrifice for your enemy. Every single person is worthy of preservation and protection, doesn't matter who you are at any point in time, universally. Okay, so if somebody says, well, let's go lead a crusade and just kill somebody because they don't act like us or live like us and just hang this cross on top of our flag, okay, I'm not talking about the abuse in the sense of somehow that uproots the reality and truth of what Jesus talks about. No, I'm saying these are hypocrites. Yeah. So what is the moral source underneath it all?
The moral source is rationality. And I'll explain. Can I?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Because you listed a few moral principles. You listed generosity. You listed compassion.
Yeah.
These are things that we can absolutely rationally arrive at through social contract theory, a Rawlsian social contract theory. So when you say someone goes out and they host a crusade, I would say that contradicts the moral principles we would arrive to under a social contract. So I feel like that's just as hypocritical as it would be for a Christian to reject their own values and do the same. That's what I'm positing to you.
And I would say, at the end of the day, it's not. If you can get away with it, because a social construct is flimsy at best. It's tremendously flimsy because there's no moral obligations and duties within a social construct theory. You need a transcendent source that's outside of your definition of truth, the culture's definition of truth, and the powerful's definition of truth. You need what Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, a law above the law in order to judge every person, every powerful person, every culture. Otherwise, it's, for the time being, we're going to say this is right or wrong. So a level of hypocrisy, sure, I can get on board with a level in the sense of, hey, you and I just agreed we shouldn't go slap that woman over there, but you just went and did it. So that's hypocritical. That's hypocritical to what we just talked about in terms of a moral theory. Yes. Sure, yes, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
But I certainly hope you don't usher in the word should, or you ought not to, or you need not to. Instead, you should be using the words, hey, we agreed to this. But as soon as you usher in moral obligations, moral duties, now you're appealing to a law outside the law. Martin Luther King Jr. talks about a law above the law, and that's hypocritical as a moral theory.
Okay, I'd love to respond to that. So,
Please.
When you say that when we are talking about morality, we're referring to some higher law. For me, I just think, like, in terms of describing morality, that morality it's sort of like insular. We produce morality, and like that. I mean, that's basically it. Like, as in terms of social agreements, we generate morality just as a definitional thing. Like, I'm operating under the assumption that, like, morality is something we produce.
All right, but where does it come from?
It comes from us. That's it.
You just randomly generate morality. That's it. Just pull it out of the air.
That's a pretty deflationary way to express it. But
Well, how do you? I don't understand. We just generate morality. What does that mean? We just generate it.
Well, we've done it for all.
I mean, how?
Okay,
Yeah.
This is a big point, because we've done it for all of human civilization, and like, people get it more right than others. This is
Who, according to who? Says who?
according to rationality, because.
But rationality is different for all times.
Okay, no,
and different for all people groups.
If people are killing innocent people, like, okay, let me start over with this. So, civilization after civilization.
Try and be a little louder.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think they can hear you.
Yeah. So, for a lot of human time,
Yeah.
we've seen some convergence on basic moral principles. We've seen a lot of societies agree to not kill one another. A lot of societies agree to not steal from one another. These things have happened for all of human history, independent of Christianity. And the reason...
All of human history?
Yeah.
The Roman Empire?
Well, they're very, very violent, but people have gotten it wrong.
That was the most
in terms
dominant
of
empire.
Well, okay, in terms of basic social agreements, like, it happens to be true that people have gotten these answers without appeal to Christianity. And
Sure.
I'd say that, yeah, and like,
I agree with that.
Where would you say that comes from?
A moral source, a law above the law, which is not inherently Christian per se. It's any monotheistic or even, it could be polytheistic. As long as it is a law above the law, it's a transcendent source. Okay, so Hindus,
Sure.
Judaism,
Sure.
Islam, and the Judeo-Christian faith all posit the moral argument. I was reading about it for Hindus this morning, actually. They can all posit it. You, as an agnostic or an atheist or anything of the sort, cannot posit moral objectivity, duties, and obligations.
But the Christian worldview commits you to saying that they're wrong. They've gotten.
But that's a different question, though.
No.
No, they're
it's
right.
relevant.
They're right there.
No, it's relevant.
Okay.
Let me build this out. It's relevant because they're under the Christian worldview. Their worldview is wrong. It's incorrect. It's mistaken, and therefore, what principles they've produced, they're human constructed. Like, if they've gotten higher, like, if they've gotten the whole higher power situation incorrect, then, like, they're operating based on human intuition. They feel as though certain things are wrong, and as a result, they produce morality under their framework. But it happens as a result of shared intuitions within those societies.
The shared intuitions of most societies before all the abolitionist movements, which were, by the way, all done by Christians, before those abolitionist movements, it was a common consensus across the entire known world: have slaves. And that's a good thing. And that was reasonable and rational. So have slaves.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong in that just because it's a few hundred years later. It's totally, we ration to the point of saying, at this point in time, if my civilization dominates yours during times of war, then I can take your spoils, my spoils of war, your spoils of war, really, bring them in and say, you're going to work for me, or you're going to be my sex slaves. And we reasoned. That was reasonable. That was rational. That was even just.
But okay, so we just today.
Yeah.
We understand that that's wrong.
Why is that wrong?
Okay, we can get there through secular means. So Rawlsian social contract. You don't know where you'll end up. You don't know where you'll be born, and it's rational for you to agree to a world where societies don't violently dominate one another, and that's just rational.
But where did that come from?
It came from us.
What do you mean it just came from us?
Under my worldview, That's basically.
But it had to come from somewhere. Did it come from the Greeks? Did it come from the Romans? Did it come from the Aztecs? Did it come from the Christians? Did it come from the Hindus? Where did that come from?
It came from the collective moral endeavor. From a moral tradition, ethics. We have huge thinkers. So, like, another point to commit to the Christian worldview is to say that, like, these moral thinkers who've done secular morality,
right?
Like, they're completely mistaken. Like, they Rawls, like, you have
they all,
and Mill, like all these people, like, that this entire.
And can I tell you the truth?
Sure.
The majority of them didn't like the moral restraints of Christianity. They called it a prudish religion. And so they didn't like the moral teachings or the moral arguments that came out of the Christian faith. And so they just came up with these other ones. And many of them are honest about that. Transparent. There was a student out here the other day. I actually just saw him. I don't know where he went. But he debated me on Christianity for a half hour. Then he debated Cliffe on Christianity for another half hour. And probably my brother Rob, I don't know if he debated him too, on all about the intellectual evidence. And he was jumping around, question after question after question. But then all of a sudden I looked him face to face and I said, well, what's the real reason? And he said, sex ethics. That's the real reason why I'm not a Christian. And I loved that vulnerability, that honesty, that transparency. And I love that we caught it on tape too, because it went viral. So
I would know. I wouldn't commit myself to that.
And I love how many professors, I'm sure here at this school too, but I'm thinking of Oxford right now, who said the same kind of thing. They said, we do not look into the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ because we don't want Christianity to be true for it to impinge on what we do sexually.
I think that's just...
It's a moral issue. So this is tremendously germane to what we're talking about right now.
I would bracket that, at least right now. One thing I want to respond to is that, like, if what we're saying is that, like, at certain points in time, people have sort of wanted to reject Christianity. More precisely, Christians have done some really messed up things.
Yes.
Some, like, colonial conquest, like, a lot of...
And what do we call them again?
What's up?
What do we call them again?
Hypocrites. And what do we call Rawlsians?
I don't know. I'm still not there.
Hypocrites.
Okay, at a time, just for a time, and it shifts after every few decades. The moral ethics to Christianity has always been true, right?
Well,
so for Rawlsians, no, that has shifted, that has changed. So to say that they're a hypocrite 30 years later is very inconsistent with 30 years previous if the group of people reasoned to the point of morality being different 30 years later than it was to now.
Okay, so if I give you a few moral principles that a Rawlsian social contract would produce.
Right.
So don't kill one another.
Yeah.
Be generous. Be kind to the poor, for example. Let's just take these three.
Yeah.
You agree with these three moral principles. Rawls would say that, like, we can do certain thought experiments to arrive at these.
Yeah.
And there's morality.
Yeah.
So if you break these moral principles, then you've done something wrong, and that's what morality is.
Right.
I don't see where you're saying that would dissolve. Because if we accept that this is the true moral framework, then no, that's the ought, that's the prescription. Mm-hmm. And I think at the very least it's fair to say that, like, maybe it isn't if, like, eventually over time people don't sort of subscribe to that. That's a descriptive thing.
Yeah. Okay, well, I would say then, next point, since we've kind of beat this puppy to death.
Sure.
Next point would be fine. Okay, Rawlsian.
Yeah.
Is that an atheistic perspective? Is it usually tied to atheism, or what worldview? Secular.
Yes.
Okay, so it's an immaterial type of thought experiment to get to the point of, here's the moral oughts and shoulds and duties, which, by the way, you still can't use that for Rawlsian. You can't say moral obligations and duties.
Well, under my conception,
it's still subjective to an audience, a crowd.
Under my,
it's not objective.
Morality, it is.
Okay, fine. That's still immaterial, and you're living in a material world.
Yes.
As an atheist.
Yes.
So these are immaterial things that you're talking about, even when you kept talking about reason, consciousness, all these are immaterial things. So how do you pull them from the material? Or connected to the moral, oftentimes, is mathematics, the question of mathematics. Einstein talked about it, then an amazing Pulitzer Prize winner talked about it in 1960. Many have talked about, from different worldviews, this one was an atheist, Einstein was a pantheist, talked about how it's amazing the mental material states we have.
Yes.
So you mental, that's the reasoning.
Sure.
Your material, physical.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, the third category is mathematical. And Einstein and this other guy from 1960, the title of the paper was The Unreasonable Applicability of Mathematics. And what this paper is basically saying is, he uses the word miracle and he's an atheist. He's saying it's a miracle that we can do mathematics because mathematical numbers are correct. 2 + 2 = 4 no matter what. And it's like they're just hanging there and we just discovered it. We didn't create them, we just discovered it.
Sure.
So kind of like morality, we just discovered it, we didn't create it, these are immaterial things. So wouldn't it make way more sense for an immaterial God to exist and an immaterial spiritual realm to exist connected to these things rather than, Rawlsian, just physical, just material, and somehow we get the mental from the physical, and then somehow we get these mathematical rules that are always present, always existed, always the same, no matter what throughout time. How do you draw that from the material or from this worldview of agnosticism?
Well, so I have to play an important question just to make sure I understand what you were bringing up.
Yeah.
The claim is that me as a secularist, I can't appeal to morality because morality it's not in the physical domain, and I'm more or less a materialist. Like that's the claim.
No, I would say Richard Dawkins would say free will and morality are many more. It's not just Richard Dawkins. Many atheist moral theorists would say these are simply misfirings from an evolutionary process, and we're lucky that they've misfired in the way they have.
Okay.
So free will, consciousness, morality, all these immaterial things. They don't really exist, they just seem to exist.
Okay. So your claim then will be that morality objective. It's almost like math. Like math is like it's immaterial, but it's you can point to it. You can say
It has edges.
It has edges.
It has edges.
So that means there's an objective answer to the trolley problem. You should have a real answer to the trolley problem if morality is objective. What's your answer? It should be true. You should be able to get it from the Bible, correct?
No, not from the Bible.
No.
No.
Okay. From where then?
You tell me according to your worldview.
Rationality. But you would also have to commit yourself to that because it's not coming from the Bible, but
Right.
there's also an objective answer to it.
And
So
I would
how then
say,
do you justify
you
the
keep
answer?
saying the word objective, how based off of rationality from social construct do you get this word objective?
I'm not saying objective. I would commit myself to saying there is not an objective answer to the
Yeah.
trolley problem, but you would. So where does the answer come?
It still comes from the value of human beings. How do you look at the value of human beings? Why would one life be valuable? Why would many lives be valuable? And yet again, my friend, the whole reason why you believe that human life is valuable, whether you're going to admit it or not, it's because we come from the seedbed of the Christian worldview, which is all are created in God's image.
I would disagree.
Which comes from Judeo-Christian values. All right, I'm glad you disagree. Give me a history lesson right now then, and tell me, where did we get the perspective that you have value, that I have value, that this guy with the crazy glasses over here has value? Why do we all have value no matter what? No matter what level of consciousness you have, no matter what level of DNA makeup you have, why do you have objective value? Don't just tell me your reasoning, but tell me historically how we got to this point.
I don't know.
You know. Okay, you don't know. You just told me you did know, though.
What's up? Wait, sorry.
Just a second ago, you told me you were going to give me an answer. You said you did know.
Well, no, not on the historical account, but like my question was like more to the my question was more relevant to like how do we describe morality? That's what the question was. So like I mean
But don't you understand? If we are having this discussion on morality, and we're going through all these different theories, well then the discussion better be attached to value. Why do you have value to begin with? Why are we even having the discussion of what is right and wrong and oughts and shoulds, an ethical system? It's because we're saying every human being has value no matter what. Okay, well, we better start there then. Why do human beings have value? Why do we ascribe them value?
Well, so
historically, you just disagreed with me, and then you said, I don't know. That's why I'm nervous right now about this discussion. Very nervous. Okay. Because you said it did not come from the Judeo-Christian value system.
Sure.
You said, no, Stuart. Then I asked you, I said, okay, please, give me the history lesson, because I'm actually really curious about this. I think it'd be fantastic if you had an alternate
Well, actually,
answer.
Can I
but you said, I don't know. So how do you know I'm not right if you said clearly, I don't know?
Well, allow me to clarify
Yeah.
my stance. So, like, let me grant that,
Yeah.
like, the Judeo-Christian values have influenced the West, etc.
Okay.
Descriptively, I think that's true.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
But why is it true? Why though?
I mean, it's just historically,
But why?
it's the Christian tradition that was brought westward. and
Okay.
Throughout the world.
Okay, but what's at the heart of that? The Christian tradition.
Jesus.
Okay. What did he do that was different? Why did that rule out every other moral theory of the time?
He had pretty good morality.
He had pretty, according to who though?
God.
God.
Okay.
So what is more reasonable? Ever since the beginning of time, what you just talked about, you beautifully historically fleshed it out. It came from the source of God, played out through Jesus Christ, not the Bible, but through God, played out through Christ. And then yes, moral ethics came from it. That's why at Harvard, Robert Coles, one of the top ethicists, said that all ethical statements are simply footnotes to the Sermon on the Mount. Simply footnotes.
So, okay.
So I think you just,
Well, no, okay.
you put it better than I did.
Okay, descriptively, that might be true.
Yeah.
But is it also true that descriptively, we can still arrive at very robust morality?
Yes.
Through secular means.
Not if you can't give me a reasonable understanding for why you are valuable no matter what, and why am I valuable no matter what, and why somebody who has special needs is valuable no matter what. If you can't convince me why they truly have objective value, then I don't know how we can get to that point.
Okay, so let's start from, like, when we're born, we're raised into the world. What do we know? We know that we experience a variety of incredible stuff. We experience relationships. We experience beauty.
Okay.
We experience art. Like,
Yeah.
from a sample, everybody experiences these things.
Yeah.
And that's happened for, like, all of human history.
Right.
So then the inevitable question is, like, okay, well, how do we regulate our interactions with one another?
Right.
And I think the most plausible explanation is there are certain things that it's rational to agree to. And, like, I feel like what I'm sort of doing here, it's sort of like reconstructing, like, a social contract. And I think it's very convincing, actually. So I feel like if we accept that, like, I would argue that, like, this is a way we can arrive at morality. You would argue that, like, we've arrived at it through God and through the Judeo-Christian tradition. How do we, like, square these with one another? I think one is more plausible than the other. Because for God and others, the reason I don't believe in God is because doing so would commit me to a variety of philosophical positions that I think would be unlikely. So, beginning of the universe, where did the universe come from?
Okay, but I'm still waiting though for a more robust understanding for why you are valuable right now, why I'm valuable, and why you shouldn't smack me in the face if I say something offensive about your mother.
It's because the truth is that I value other people, and, like, that's true.
But why?
I was raised to value other people.
Because you were raised. Okay, I was not raised to value other people.
Okay.
I was raised to step on other people. I was raised in New York City, so it's a dog eat dog. And so in downtown Manhattan, I better beat out the other guy by any means necessary in order to get the position I want. So that's how I was raised, so don't tell me I'm wrong.
Well,
so I devalue human beings.
Imagine for a second that we had a society that was constructed with that as a moral principle. What would happen? It would cease to exist.
The Roman Empire did not cease to exist, my friend. The Roman Empire lasted for a really long time, and that's what I was describing. Downtown Manhattan right now, the dog eat dog, that's very Roman Empire. Sodom and Gomorrah as well, a mix.
But for example, the Roman Empire, it's not here today. It was very...
But it lasted. How long did it last?
It lasted very long.
It dominated the entire world.
But imagine, like, within the Roman Empire.
There can be great evil within Hitler. Okay, let's go to Hitler. I mean, let's keep going.
Sure.
There wasn't breakdown. There was incredible world domination, and there was evil within it. Dog eat dog.
Right, and over...
So I wouldn't usher in this type of goodness and say you have to have goodness in order for society to last. First of all, according to who, what's goodness?
Over time, they die out.
Over time, they die out.
Yes.
Over time, they die out. That's why it's wrong.
Well, okay,
Because they die out over time.
Think about it.
They don't die out over time.
No. Think about it on like more macro level. Let's start like within just a small community. A small community where people find it acceptable to kill one another, and then they do. What happens? It doesn't last. And like I understand what you're.
No, they dominate others though. I'm talking about those that dominate others. Yeah, you're right. If it was a small community and you and I killed each other, we wouldn't last. I'm talking about the dominant societies, though, that looked at other tribes and said, let's go get them.
But
kill them off.
At the very least, like,
they were very successful.
Okay, but at the very least, can we start with this sort of like smaller community?
Why?
What you argued was that like it would die off. That's true. It's irrational.
Why is it irrational?
Because it would die off.
Okay, because it'll die off. A small little group.
Well, also like
that makes it irrational.
The more fundamental reason is that like it's not in our interest to enter into an agreement where people are okay with killing one another. It's not rational. And like I'd love to keep deferring to sort of like the Rawlsian social contract here, in that like societal domination, we can still say that's wrong. That's the reference point here.
I'm just still having such a tough time because for thousands of years, historically, people would have completely disagreed with that thought. It's rational not to enter into war. Do you know how many societies would say it is very rational to enter into war so I can get your land, so I can get your women, so I can plunder you? No, it's very rational. So you're saying, what, it's just based off of time maybe? So I want to give you an argument maybe. Just over time, people got to the point of reasoning together, oh shoot, we shouldn't have war. Let's just have peace. And so is that why we have worldwide peace right now? No, let me answer that for you. We don't have worldwide peace. So time doesn't make a difference. Okay. The sinful human heart always has evil and goodness within it. And that poisons the lot.
But I don't think that necessarily has to be placed under a religious context. We could just say that like humans are interested in themselves, and that's something that just happens to be true, and that's something that's caused societies to be so aggressive to one another at the time.
And I call that the sin problem.
Yeah. Can I ask you like just on a slightly different topic?
Yes.
So you mentioned like God-shaped hole.
Yeah.
I think my original question here, like in the past, was like, if society sort of produced localized moralities without appeal to God, then like how can that happen with them not appealing to God, without appealing to the Christian God? And your response was everyone sort of has a God-shaped hole that they feel as though like certain moral principles like should be true. Could you flesh out that idea? I just want to make sure I understand.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Dostoevsky said it. Nietzsche said it himself as well. Dostoevsky said, if there is no God, do what you want. And he was not saying, if you don't believe in God, do what you want and you're just a morally horrible person.
Yeah.
People think he said that. He didn't say that. He was saying, logically, if you don't believe in a God, then there's no moral obligation, shoulds and oughts, and so do what you want. But he said many atheists are good people, and that's true for me in my life as well. So just because you have societies that are atheistic and are good in a way, where again, I don't know where they get this obligation of good, but you can be good without God, clearly. Yeah. And so a God-shaped hole more so is for me, psychology. Because I believe, my friend, if you live for any type of academia, your grades, if you live for what you're going to do next after you graduate, if you live for a girl in your life, if you live for any of these things, ultimately they're going to eat you alive. It does not fit in your God-shaped hole. What does fit in your God-shaped hole is someone called God, a transcendent, eternal source that'll never let you down. And psychologically, this is an agreement across the board. You have to have something eternal. It cannot be finite. This is why David Foster Wallace said everybody worships something. It's way smarter, and he was an atheist who hung himself, partly because of his God-shaped hole. It's way smarter to worship something infinite that will never let you down and will always be there than something that is finite that will always let you down eventually. Your parents are going to die if you're living for them. Your kid is going to get sick, maybe die, or maybe take off.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to lose your kid. Eventually you're going to lose all these things.
Yeah.
So none of these things will fill your God-shaped hole. other than God.
Sure. So I guess one of my questions there is that is that an appeal to truth or is it an appeal to convenience? And like I'd like to sort of
I think you define truth as that which comports most with reality.
Yeah.
And reality is you're living for something, and I would call that something a type of vacuum that wants to suck in, it's a God-shaped hole, suck in anything to live for. What are you going to live for ultimately is going to help, is ultimately going to help sustain you in life, or it's going to harm you. It's going to lead to something like addiction.